Every year we get new stuff, and usually it comes in small groups. We get a new AMD processor generation, or we get new NVIDIA graphics cards, or sometimes Intel finally shrinks their manufacturing process after 8 years, and we get an all-new socket design. These product launches usually blow through the tech media like gentle gusts of wind, maybe ruffling a few feathers along the way, but generally just keeping the steady march of progress moving forward at a predictable pace. This year, we got a full-on hardware tornado, and we all got smacked in the side of the head by new CPUs from 2 companies and new GPUs from 3 companies, in addition to everything else that you might expect. It's been quite a year, and we're going to recap it right now with the Hardware Awards 2022. Looking to grab Windows at a crazy discount? Head over to scdkey.com at the links below and use promo code BPS25 at checkout to score a sweet deal on Windows 10, Windows 11, and Microsoft Office. Once you've completed your purchase, just click over to your user center, hit the green button to view your code, copy and paste it into your Windows activation settings, and away you go. Check out SCDKey at the links in the video description for Windows, Office, games, and more. For the past few years, I've handed off a lot of this duty to my friends and colleagues in the tech industry for collaborative videos that talk about the developments throughout the year. Those videos are certainly fun, but with the absolute madness that has been the last few months of product launches, the last thing that I wanted to do was burden my fellow reviewers and YouTubers with another video to shoot. So this time, I'm tackling this year-end video all on my own. If you want to see what we all said last year, feel free to check out this video. That was a lot of fun to make. We'll be separating out the awards this year into 5 different categories, and each category will have a winner and 1 or 2 runners-up. Unfortunately, corporate has slashed my budget for this video, and I don't have any physical prizes to give out, but if any company would like to collect it, I'll buy them a drink at CES. First up, let's talk new ideas and concepts with the innovation of the year. This category is going to have a red tinge to it, as you'll see in a second, but I think there were 2 standout ideas that came out of 2022 that we're going to see a lot of in the future, and they both came from the same company. The runner-up here is AMD's chiplet GPU design. For the entire history of nerds, GPUs have existed as monolithic dies. There were rumblings 4 or 5 years ago about both NVIDIA and AMD considering adopting the chiplet approach to GPUs, but it was AMD who first took the plunge with RDNA 3. This is a big deal because it allows the advancement of GPU architectures and the shrinking of process nodes to continue on the main graphics die while leaving the memory cache and memory controller to a separate piece or pieces of that package that doesn't necessarily benefit from downscaling. This will ultimately mean bigger advancements in graphics with lower cost. But the winner of the Innovation Award for 2022 is actually AMD's 3D V-Cache, as we saw on the 5800X 3D. I admit that I was skeptical when I first heard about this. After all, the 5800X was not that great of a product. Sure, it was fine, but from a value perspective, it was eclipsed on both sides by the 5600X and the 5900X. But with an enormous 96 megs of L3 cache, the 5800X 3D turned the gaming benchmark charts upside down, as more data can now be stored directly on the CPU as opposed to having to be pulled from memory. This was especially effective at low to medium resolution gaming, where the CPU is often the bottleneck. And I am excited to see future implementations of this tech by AMD, and hopefully by Intel as well if they can figure out something similar. Next up is the category that I've already announced in a previous video, and if you want to catch that one, you can do so up here. It's Case of the Year time, and I have 2 close calls here before ultimately declaring a winner. My first runner-up is the Montech Sky 2. What an unexpectedly great little surprise from a company that I've heard very little about until this year. The Sky 2 hits a fantastic price point at $100, has fairly unique aesthetics, good airflow, and comes with 4 RGB fans. It was an awesome selection for the viewer's choice PC build, and I'd recommend that you guys check it out. My second runner-up is the Height Y60. This one is going to cost you a little bit more, as it MSRP is around $200, but can regularly be found on sale for anything down to about $160. That bumps it out of the budget class, but a case like this is more made for showcase systems and high-end builds. It has an extremely unique mechanical design with fans built into the floor and a required vertical GPU mount, but it comes with a PCIe 4.0 riser and some neat fit and finish features that make for an eye-catching finished product. But my case of the year for 2022 goes to the Fractal North. I talked about this pretty extensively in my review video, but the North just strikes the perfect balance between form and function. It comes off as warm and inviting from any angle, as almost none of the edges are harsh or square. You get interesting curves and lines all around. The interior layout is practical and functional, components are easy to install and access, and of course, you get that awesome real wood front panel design. Not to mention that you can get it in black or white, and the wood and trim colors change depending on what you choose. At $130, it's an easy pick for me here. We might as well tackle silicon with the next two categories, so let's first hit graphics cards with GPU of the year. We've seen a flood of these over the past few months as all three major silicon manufacturers introduce new products to market with varying results. I want to give my first runner-up slot to AMD's 7900 XTX. This actually was a borderline one for me, as although I spoke highly of the XTX in my review video, it's still a $1,000 GPU that faces an uphill battle on the ray tracing and content creation front. But I wanted to give AMD props for a few things. First, they do battle directly with the RTX 4080 in most tests for $200 cheaper. Second, they managed to keep largely the same form factor and price as their previous gen cards. Third, the chiplet approach seems to be working, and this is a high-end option with a lot of promise. And lastly, AMD has been fighting an uphill battle for a long time, but they are getting closer to Nvidia with each release. The 7900 XTX is a good GPU, and it gets my recommendation. The other runner-up here may be a little bit of a surprise, but it's Intel's A770. The A770 is the flagship of the Arc GPU line, if you could call it that, and through all the rumors, speculation, and skepticism over the past few years, Intel actually came out with a discrete GPU that can compete with modern hardware. Even with Intel's vast resources, being a new player in a market segment so dominated by two companies is a daunting task, and launching a mid-range GPU at a reasonable price is commendable. I hope Intel can straighten out their drivers, as they're still a complete mess, but I look forward to what they can do in the future. But the GPU of the year for 2022 can't really be anything except the RTX 4090. I have never seen such a massive leap in graphics horsepower in my entire time in the industry as we saw here, and that's even taking into account that Ampere was way better than Turing. The 4090 makes the 3090 look like a joke, often outperforming it by 70% in both rasterization and ray tracing tests. It slays in every content creation application. It sports a massive 24 gigs of GDDR6X and over 1 terabyte per second of memory bandwidth. It's power hungry, but actually consumes less wattage than the previous generation 3090 Ti in my testing. Even though the MSRP is a staggering $1,600, it's entirely in a class of its own when it comes to the top of the GPU product stack, and it does things that we've really never seen a GPU do before. It's an easy choice for graphics card of the year, now only if there were more of them available. CPU of the year is another category that saw a huge number of choices come through the BPS Customs offices in 2022, but three stood out. First up was the 5800X 3D. As the last gasp of a dying platform, it was quite the way to go out. AMD introducing 3D V-Cache and keeping AM4 relevant for likely years to come was a brilliant move, as the 5800X 3D still tops some of my CPU gaming performance charts to this day. The price on this chip is still relatively high due to demand, but if it inches down a bit, it will be a great in-socket upgrade for millions of PC gamers with older AM4 setups. My other runner-up choice is another AMD chip, the 7600X. I was going to slot the 7950X in here just due to its recent and significant price drop, but I felt that at $250, the 7600X is just better for more people. It unexpectedly was a fantastic gaming chip, boosting up beyond 5 GHz in my testing and beating out the 5600X and 5900X, often in keeping pace with the 7700X. It also handles multi-threaded workloads fairly well, as it's still a 6-core 12-thread part. and the socket that it sits in will be in use for at least the next few years. But my CPU of the year has to go to the Intel i9-13900K. I didn't think that I would like Raptor Lake as much as I do, but I haven't run into a single application in my daily workflow that the 13900K wasn't the best at. It's the best editing CPU that I've ever used, easily handling complicated Adobe Premiere projects. It never skips a beat in OBS recording, no matter how complex the scene. It comes in at the top of basically every gaming chart. And when I switched to it for my extreme overclocking platform, I saw noticeable gains in my results, and I still sit in a top 10 position to this day. It's a shame that Intel will be moving away from this socket, but that alone isn't enough to knock the 13900K from the top of my CPU recommendations. Before getting into the final category, I want to recognize a company and a product that has become so essential into so many different workflows that it earns my weird version of a Lifetime Achievement Award, and that's the Elgato Stream Deck. You almost don't see any gaming setup now without one, and it serves so many functions that it is no longer just a product targeted at Twitch streamers, despite its name. Corsair purchased Elgato and has iterated on the Stream Deck idea, making smaller versions, larger versions, and integrating the functionality into keyboards and even laptops. I use mine every day to control lighting, volume, and OBS recording, but you can tack on basically any macro function that fits your needs. The Stream Deck was and continues to be essential hardware, and I think it deserves some recognition here. My last category for 2022 is Best Overall Company or Vendor of the Year. For this one, I took a number of things into consideration: quality of products, price positioning, and consumer friendliness among them. The runners-up here are both very similar companies, European-based manufacturers who often over-engineer their solutions to PC enclosures while also branching out into coolers and power supplies. The first is Be Quiet, who consistently produces extremely high-quality components and has a top-notch customer service team. While they didn't bring any major releases this year to the case market, with I guess the exception of a slight revision to their excellent PureBase 500, they launched maybe the best fans out there with the Silent Wings Pro 4. And their Dark Power Pro 12 power supplies are absurdly high quality. Even their budget line of Pure Power PSUs is 80+ gold rated and fully modular. These guys don't skimp on much, and it's one of the reasons they are a long-time channel partner. The second company that deserves a mention is Fractal Design. Not only did they release their second consecutive case of the year with the North, they also launched compact versions of the Torrent, the previous case of the year. But actually, what makes me choose them here has to do with how they handled problems with their products. Over the past 14 months, Fractal has had 2 significant defects pop up. Not ideal, but the way they handled both was extremely encouraging. They were transparent with their customers and offered quick and easy replacement options, even if users weren't experiencing any issues. That is how you build goodwill in the industry. But my vendor of the year is the company who has appeared most often in this video, and that is AMD. Just given how far they've come in the past 12 months, I think they deserve some serious extra kudos. In 2022, they did the following: developed and launched 3D V-Cache on processors, developed a new platform and launched AM5 with 4 new CPUs that all perform extremely well, launched their 4th gen EPYC CPUs, the fastest server processors in the world, launched RDNA 3 and the 7900 graphics cards, the world's first chiplet GPUs, introduced Swift and significant price cuts on popular in-demand hardware. And the whole time, they maintained a substantial community involvement with their AMD Red team and cooperation with a number of charity builders. They aren't without flaws, certainly. Their marketing team makes some questionable claims in presentations, and the 7900 XT was very meh. But overall, they've had a busy year with mostly well-received product launches and are heading in the right direction to keep all aspects of PC building competitive between silicon manufacturers. So that's it, guys. What or who are your picks for these awards? Make sure to let me know down below in the comments. Also, please click that like button on your way out, and consider getting subscribed to the channel if you're not already. As always, guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.